What's up, you guys? This is Makanor, and I'm gonna talk about um psychological conditions and disorders that people think Otherkin have are confused with Otherkin. Now, the general public seems to think a lot of Otherkin are basically crazy, mentally ill, or delusional. But so I'm gonna list some of these things and try to counter. Fantasy prone personality. And like it says, it's somebody that is a person with fantasy prone personality is a disposition or personality trait in which a person experiences a lifelong, extensive, and deep involvement in fantasy. Are better described an overactive imagination or living in a dream world. And these characteristic features are having being an excellent hypnotic subject, having imaginary friends in childhood, fantasizing often as a child, 4. Having an actual fantasy identity, 5. Experiencing imagined sensations as real, 6. Having vivid sensory perceptions, 7. Reputed paranormal experiences, i.e., claiming psychic powers, encountering apparitions, reliving past experiences, having out of body experiences, communicating with higher intelligences or spirits, claiming to be abducted by aliens, 8. Mystical experiences. 9. Believe they have powers for spiritual healing or faith healing. 10. Waking dreams. 11. Receiving sexual satisfaction without physical stimulation. Now, to me, I'm just gonna give my personal opinion. I don't I don't believe in fantasy prone personality. I don't believe it's a disorder. I don't believe it's a condition. To me, I feel like nowadays psychologists are just making up conditions, making up mental illnesses and conditions, and just throwing something together just to simply make people feel bad about something. Now, for me, I believe those characteristics 1 through 10 anybody could have had in their lifetime. Anybody as a kid, anybody as a kid could fantasize. Anybody as a kid would have had imaginary friends. A lot of people, whether they're kids or adults, are perfect hypnotic subjects. A lot of people have fantasy identities, or their own little personal fantasy self. A lot of people experience imagined situations. Now I don't know about 5. That's subjective. 6, vivid sensory perceptions. That's subjective. A lot of people feel like they have very sharp senses. You don't have to be otherkin for that. And 7, a lot of people that are not otherkin claim to have psychic powers, claim to have seen ghosts. Seeing ghosts, you can basically say a lot of people in America claim to, at one point in their life, have seen a ghost. Or relive a past experience with deja vu or something, having an out of body experience. And a lot of religious and spiritual people claim to communicate with higher intelligence or spirits. And you have a lot of extraterrestrial people claim to be abducted by aliens, and mystical experiences. And a lot of people claim they have spiritual powers for spiritual healing. You can say that's basically priests, shamans, all of that. These are not just otherkin specific things, and this is not just basically people with mental illnesses either. Now, as for 11, receiving sexual satisfaction without physical stimulation, I know somebody that has this type of physical condition where they get aroused by nothing. Basically nothing, because it's just extremely oversensitive down there. So this is not something that's really extensively for otherkin. Also, absorption. A person becomes absorbed in their mental imagery or fantasy. Fantasizers become absorbed with their vivid and realistic mental imagery. Um, I'm gonna have to counter that one because a lot of other can know the difference between reality and fantasy, and a lot of other can don't really get too sucked up into their own visualizations or vivid imaginations. Escapism or disassociation. Um, I'm gonna have to counter that one too because a lot of otherkin I know have pretty decent, happy lives that have nothing to do with them being otherkin, and them identifying as a certain stereotype or kin type in no way affects that. And the last one that's very serious, that should be taken seriously regardless of whether it applies to otherkin or not, clinical lycanthropy or zoanthropy. And I'm gonna have to counter this one as well, but I can see why people would confuse it for Otherkin, because if you look at canine Therians, that howl and growl and whatnot, or experience M shifts, versus somebody with clinical lycanthropy that believes mentally, psychologically, and physically that they are a wolf, you can see where people would get confused. But to me, the main difference is Otherkin acknowledge that physically they are human and that they only identify as the animal on a spiritual level or a psychological level. Whereas someone with clinical lycanthropy completely denies reality. They completely deny the fact that they're physically human, or they're incapable of acknowledging that they're physically human and that they cannot transform into a wolf or any other animal. And they have actual hallucinations that they think are real, where they think that they actually are the animal. Whereas somebody that is otherkin or Therian that's going through an M shift or so knows the difference between the M shift and reality. They know that they're mentally or spiritually this animal, whereas they're not physically transforming into an animal. And they know not to act on such harmful impulses. But nonetheless, in every single community, whether it's the Otherkin community, whether it's, any religious community or any type of subculture or whatever, you have people that are mentally ill. That's an unavoidable thing. But that should not be tied into the actual community itself. There's always going to be a bad apple or a bad egg in the community. Should that be blamed on the community? No. Should we blame every single community for what one crazy person, one mentally ill person in that community did? No. Or what that. But you get my point. Clinical lycanthropy is not something to be laughed at, and neither are any of these other conditions. These are not laughing matters. People, if you know somebody with a mental illness, make sure you get them the help that they need, because it's helpful for that person, and it might just save or avoid someone else being harmed. This is Makanor. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. I'm out.